Hello and welcome to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today I'm going to be talking about all aboard the choo-choo train.
So the big question is this: how are parents like us, who don't have a manual, who are doing the best we can, who feel as though we aren't enough, how are we going to raise healthy, happy children who we are proud of and still keep our sanity in that process? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Ryan Roy, and welcome to I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, a podcast for parents who are being real with themselves.
Hello and welcome back to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today I'm going to be talking about the train, the choo-choo train, the fascination with little boys and a choo-choo train. And I have to say, I feel like a bad dad in regards to this. For those of you who have listened quite a while, I wrote the book, Be the Dad You Wish You Had, 40 Powerful Lessons Becoming a Powerful Dad. Somebody once told me when they read the book, hey, all I hear is be intentional, right? For me, it's being present with our kids and doing things with them that they will enjoy, but you will also enjoy, getting down, talking to them, and just interacting with them on a number of levels. And I'm kind of saddened by something because I didn't have the train in the 40 lessons. I often say, as I'm going through this second round of parenting, I wrote the book right when I started writing the book when my first son turned 5, and there are lessons that I basically did in the first 5 years of his life pretty consistently. And I often refer to my own book to make sure I'm doing some of the same things with the second child, because I think the first one's pretty awesome. And I'm proud of him, and I want to make sure I duplicate the efforts. Even though it's a different child, the lessons are still the same that they can learn. But I didn't include the choo-choo train. See, early on, when my son was 1, we bought the current house that we live in now. Less than 1/8 of a mile down the road is a railroad crossing and tracks. And I used to go over there almost on a daily, easily on a weekly basis, and we would go over and see the choo-choo train because he is fascinated by trains real early. There's also a park across the street from our house, and you could see the train from the park. So even if we didn't go all the way down to the tracks and get an up-close visual of the train as it went by and honked its horn, and we throw rocks over there and do just boy stuff, you could always see the train from the park. And the amazing thing about the park is whenever the train comes along and you have the little kids, the parents get excited, like, oh, do you want to see the train? And they run to the edge of the park where the fence is, and they all line up along the fence, and they all watch the train go by a 1/4 mile, 1/8 of a mile down the road. So yesterday I got my kids got out of school a little bit early. We got home. The little one wanted to get in the wagon. The big one wanted to get in the wagon. We have a dual wagon. I brought them down to the park. They're enjoying the park. They're running around. They're doing their thing. And the choo-choo train comes. And I say to the little one, Jaden, let's go over and see the train. And he didn't really, he hears the train all the time because we live so close to it. But to see the train, he came over to the fence, and he didn't run like his brother used to. He didn't get all excited like his brother used to because he hasn't experienced it as much as his brother. But he got over and he starts doing the hand gesture of like the choo-choo and like the engineer pulling the horn, and he's like, choo-choo train. And it's kind of off at a distance. The time of day it was a dark or a black train. It was in the shadow. You really couldn't see it. It was going slow. There wasn't any noise. So after about 30 seconds, it kind of walked and was like, okay, I had enough of the train. But I remember how much fun it was for my older one. I remember going to the tracks. I remember experiencing the train. Now, some of you are like, what's the big deal about a train? Kids are fascinated by airplanes, trains, trucks, anything that has wheels, anything that they're just fascinated by it. The older one loved Thomas the Train. We had all the train tracks. We still have all the train tracks. And the little one is now doing it. So to see a physical train is awesome to them. And then you get to start learning the different cars, and you get to hear the engine and the caboose and all the different, the tanker cars and this car and the cargo car and all of the different cars of the train. And to see it up close and personal is just cool. It's interactive. And they're mesmerized, and I'm mesmerized still by this monstrosity of a machine that brings things around our entire country on things that were built hundreds of years ago, the railroad tracks. And then we learn about the railroad ties, and it's just, it can be fun. And I can't believe that it didn't make the book. It should be lesson number 41 if I can add a bonus chapter in there. And I started to say, and I kind of feel like a bad dad because I don't do that as much with the little one as I did with the older one. The difference being is I have an older one and I'm involved in a lot of other stuff and have a lot of other commitments at this point in my parenting journey. I think that second one sometimes gets slighted, and I try to be conscious not to do that. But what the little one has that the big one didn't is he has his older brother. And his older brother gets to share some of these things with him. And his older brother gets to walk to the tracks with him. And his older brother gets to play on the slides with him. And although dad still does all those things with the kids, I find joy in watching my oldest son love on his little brother. You may hear the train in the background as I'm recording right now. That's how close it is. It's funny that it started honking right in the middle of this podcast. There it is, loud and clear. So, be present with your kids as much as you possibly can. I know we're busy as parents. I hope that we, as I look in the mirror sometimes, I hope that you and myself can just be more present and say, wow, I get to go to the train tracks with my kids. I get to go to the park. You don't have to do any of this stuff. As a matter of fact, it's a privilege and a blessing that if you have the time and you make the time to pour into your kids that way. In this instance, it's the train. I kind of miss it. I had a great time with the boys yesterday. But it could be anything. It could be baking brownies. It could be baking cookies. It could be watching their favorite show. It could be pulling up a YouTube video. My son yesterday asked me this question. He says, Dad, how long does it take to get to Mars? And honestly, I didn't know. I'm not a space kind of guy. It's not my thing. I said, but we could Google it. I said, and I know we've sent things to Mars before. And I was like, man, I want to say it's like a year or something. Well, I found out yesterday with my son on a great question that we have a goal to actually send privately a man to Mars by 2024. That is 5 years from now. And it could take as little as 30 days, but up to like 120 days, depending how far away Mars is to Earth in the rotation of the sun. So it's something like 33.9 million miles away at its closest distance, which is astonishing to me. Which, how fast do you have to travel through space to do 34 million miles to get to Mars? But at its greatest distance, it's 140 million miles away. The only reason I know this today is because yesterday my son asked a great question, and I was present enough to say, that's a great question. Let's figure it out. So whether it's figuring out the distance between Earth and Mars or figuring out how a train works, be present with your kids. They deserve it, and more importantly, you deserve it. We'll see you in the next episode.
Do you want to be the dad you wish you had? If so, go get my free book, Be the Dad You Wish You Had, at BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com. Inside, you'll find my most effective 40 tips to quickly and easily transform yourself into the ideal dad. Go to BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com now and get it while it's free.